Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Takeaway Teaching on Monday, April 27th, 2020. This afternoon, we're talking about what does great remote teaching and learning look like. At the moment, we're really looking at three platforms holistically across the school: Go for Schools, YouTube lessons and tutorials, and using Microsoft Teams. Today's focus is going to be on YouTube lessons and tutorials and thinking about some of the really excellent practice that's already up there and kind of what sort of lessons we can learn from that and how we can build those into more regular routines of setting great work in that platform. So what I wanted to start people looking at and thinking about is in 2014 the Sutton Trust released a superb report called What Makes Great Teaching, and in it you can see on the left hand side here they came up with 6 tenets in order of impact in the classroom, and pedagogical content knowledge, quality of instruction being the most impactful, and teacher beliefs and professional behaviours being the least impactful. Now, all of these are positives, all of these are strong positives anyway, but the fact is the top 2 are really, really important. Now, what I've done on the right hand side is reordered them a little bit for our remote teaching and learning, and actually pedagogical content knowledge and the quality of instruction are still, I think, very much the most important. How well we know our subjects and how to teach them is more essential than ever in the current situation, as is the quality of instruction. Because the basic tenets of great teaching don't change just because we're in a remote situation outside of the classroom. If anything, they become again more important because it's about cutting through the white noise of the format of the remote classroom and thinking, right, what is the stuff that's going to make a real difference? Professional behaviours becomes more important now because professional behaviours ties in with things like how receptive are people to CPD and research. And of course, in this climate, we need to be receptive to these things. We need to be receptive to doing things in a new or different way. And this isn't just about technology. It's about a mindset, which also ties in with teacher beliefs. It's a mindset that actually we can still deliver as powerfully to our young people in this format as we can in the classroom. And it's important to hold that belief and hold, I suppose, that kind of pedagogical optimism going through this whole process. And the last 2, classroom management, I think is still significant because you're having to manage the different kinds of behaviours of your class. We've obviously moved away from naughtiness here, but a sense of what work they're doing, how do they engage with the work. Classroom climate, in this sense, for us as teachers, effectively becomes a sort of zero impact because there's no impact we can have on the classroom climate, I suppose, other than giving pupils and parents advice and guidance about how to set up a quiet and decent study area for their children. But then coming back to the quality of instruction, well, this then ties in with Rosenshine's principles, because when we look at Rosenshine's principles of instruction, the 17 principles that he outlines, almost all of these can be done in a really strong fashion through a YouTube tutorial and through the intelligent and precise use of remote technologies. So, for example, new material in small steps. Limit the amount of material students receive at one time. I think that's very important anyway, isn't it? When you look across at this detail of ideas, there's certain things which the YouTube format is lent itself incredibly well to. Thinking aloud and modelling steps, providing models of worked out problems, providing many examples. Where things become more difficult, I think, are things like the checking for understanding, ask pupils to explain what they've learned. You're really kind of relying on them to demonstrate it, aren't you? And preparing students in lots of ways. But fundamentally, there's a lot of these practices that you can still engage your pupils with. And as long as we're, again, teaching in a really clear and precise fashion, I think these things can be delivered really effectively through YouTube tutorials and what we do. So I suppose what I'd advise you to do as the next step is actually start really looking at the YouTube channel. If you haven't uploaded anything yourself and you want to, I think please, ask me about this if you're not sure about what to do and the impact, because I think the impact of these videos is incredibly important. I think first of all it gives our students familiarity. Hearing your voices is a reassuring thing, it's a positive thing. So looking at these things on the images here we've picked out, this is from a maths teacher, and this is a fantastic checklist that they provided. Now the reason I'm just saying a maths teacher is they didn't put their name on the YouTube tutorial, and this is something I would just really go back to in terms of teachers making sure that those names are visible so that your pupils know exactly who this is aimed at, and therefore I think that would be a helpful thing just in general in terms of sharing good practice and also recognising excellence. But this was a really useful checklist that they'd sent to pupils, and this was in the first part of their YouTube tutorial. Here is a retrieval quiz that I'd set on forms. Now, the reason I've decided to do this at the start of my YouTube tutorials is I always think retrieval quizzes are very useful. I was doing this already, but the new Oak Academy, which is essentially the national academy that's been set up to provide pupils with online resources, this was an incredibly useful way of doing things, and what they were doing is at the start of each of their lessons they have a quiz for pupils to engage with, and at the end of that lesson a quiz on what pupils have learnt. Now, they're delivering 1 hour lessons in terms of content and activities. We're doing something slightly different because we're often using the tutorials to kind of set up a week's work, so it's a slightly different process, but even so I think it's a very useful thing. This is an example from Pippa Letz's work with her Year 10s, going through some DIRT feedback and engaging with them in that way. Again, I think that's a really good, positive, systematic response to their learning. You go back to Rosenshine again, that's as well. And again, modelling is so important. And identify the best way to do this for the context. So sometimes it will be best to just continue modelling with, say, digital resources or using a PowerPoint presentation. That can be very, very effective. Equally, if you have a visualizer, I think this is the most useful thing that you could be doing with it, because again, if we see here, this is Nicola Bailey's excellent modelling of some chemistry work, and again the sort of clarity it provides for pupils, and also just a reminder that in this online world, hard copy work, written work is still vital, because that's still likely the way that pupils will get assessed when we return to schools. So just thinking about some basic principles of a really great YouTube tutorial, I think it's good to do at the start, clarify the resources and work that pupils will need for the week. Are they going to need to use Teams? Are they going to need to use anything on forms or quizzes? How are you setting the work? Is it all through Go for Schools? Is it all through MathsWatch? Is it all through assignments? Be really clear with that instruction. Then set a retrieval quiz via Teams and ask pupils to do this as a do now. This is really good practice anyway, and I think it will be a really helpful way of starting this, and it's a good way of you checking their understanding, and I think probably it's going to be the best way for you to do this. Then really clear instructions and guidance as to what they'll be doing. And then when you've done that and provided that, model the activity and think about what's the best way to do this. Sometimes if you have a visualizer, it will be the absolute best way, but there's many forms, aren't there, to model work effectively, so have a think about that. Include regular pauses for pupils to get on with elements of the work. Give it a really clear distinction. I think in some of the videos I listen to, people talk about a pause and they continue talking through the pause. Really make it extant. Say, right, I'm now pausing the video, then go quiet, and then come back to it. And then finally, let the pupils know through the tutorial how you wish them to demonstrate their learning, submit the work, and how feedback will be provided. And there's that final confirmation in the video of what you're expecting from them. So therefore, your tutorial at the start of the week becomes a really good way of setting the pupils up for their weekly work, giving them some familiarity with your voice, giving you some familiarity in terms of the experience of being a teacher, actually delivering some content in a particular way as opposed to typing into a computer. And I think this is a good thing to think about. So a simple 6-point model in terms of trying to use a YouTube tutorial really effectively. Again, the basic tenets of great instruction are here, aren't they? But what we're trying to do now is think more about how we want to use this in a format of a sort of 15 to 20 minute maximum video, as opposed to how we might deliver a 1 hour or 2 hour period of content to students in a classroom. I hope everyone's well. Thank you for the really useful feedback and information you're providing, and above all, thank you very much for the excellence and quality of your work. The provision of expertise and enthusiasm for young people is so important, never more so than now. So thank you for everything you're doing. As ever, please get in touch with me for any feedback, advice, guidance, the correction of errors, or anything that you want to share on a teaching and learning point of view. I'm here and I'm listening. Take care, everyone, and have a great week. Bye.